going to bring up a new project application here and pick Windows app.
So this is the Windows app that VB developers already know and love.
It's the same one. It feels and looks just like Visual Basic 6. I got my toolbox over here, my Solution Explorer. I've got my dynamic help down here to help me out as I program.
That's great.
So I'm going to come over here and I've got a default form that's going to come up.
Alrighty.
And I'm going to...
There's that form.
There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and drag a data grid onto here. And I'm going to go ahead and dock that data grid.
And what is docking, Mike?
Well, you know how you used to write that resize code, so when you move the form, you'd have to resize all the controls so it would look right?
I do know what you're talking about.
Well, you don't have to write any more code. You just select the control, go to dock property, and we'll just dock it for the whole form.
That's
and
amazing.
Now, when I select the form and I resize it, it'll automatically resize that data grid.
That's great stuff.
All right, so let's access that middle tier component. VB developers are very used to adding references to COM components and to controls.
Sure.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and add a web reference.
Now, what's a web reference, Mike?
Well, it's a reference in your application that references this XML web service. So it's a method, basically, that's exposed as XML, and I can go ahead and access that.
Sounds great.
It's easy. It's easy as pie, Ari.
So this is just like referencing any other component. The only difference is this is sitting on a web server somewhere, right?
Exactly, Ari. And it could be through firewalls on the internet somewhere, all the way across the world. It doesn't matter. I can still program against it like it was a local component.
That's beautiful.
All right.
That's right.
Well, let's go ahead and throw an in-place menu editor up there. Let's just go ahead and drag this onto our form.
An in-place menu editor. Now, I'm used to the old VB6 menu editor. That's a real pain in the patootie.
Yeah, well, that's old school, Ari. This is new school. This is the way you do it. You just go ahead and edit it right here live. So we'll just say get data.
Amazing.
And now what we do is we'll just click on this and we'll go ahead and get the data behind it.
This is indeed very new school.
Right. And I've got a little code snippet here, only 2 lines of code. I'm going to dimension DS as a new instance of that web service. And I'm going to set my data grid data source equal to that method ds.getAuthors that was generated by the web service.
It looks pretty simple.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and run it, Ari? Let's just hit F5. That's as easy as it is.
Now, that's an entire application written in about 2 minutes.
Well, probably 1 minute and 40 seconds, but sure. Let's go ahead and hit the data button, and the data is going to come back from that middle tier component, that web service, and bam, there it is.
There it is. Very nice. 1 application down. How many do you go?
2 more. Let's go ahead and build a web application. So
I'm getting excited.
Bring up another instance of the IDE. We're going to go ahead and ASP.NET web application.
Now, Mike, I'm a VB developer today. I don't know how to build web apps.
Ari, you're a web developer now.
How do you figure?
Because building a web application is just like building a Windows application. There's really nothing new to learn.
I don't believe it. Show me.
Well, let me show you. You know, when you've got a form up here, you're used to dragging and dropping things onto that form. So if I come over here, I can drag a data grid and I can drag it onto that form.
Now, this is just like the data grid on our Windows form?
It's the same one. So you can basically just resize that and you can move it around your form. Now, here's the HTML that you're probably thinking about building web applications, but you never need to touch that.
Sure.
So what if we wanted to change some properties in here? You're used to doing designers, so if we right mouse click here, we can go to the auto format and pick one of the colorful professional one, for instance, and now we've got a nice.
That's amazing.
All right. So we can do a bunch of other things with properties, etc., but let's go ahead and add that web reference again. So adding the web reference is exactly like adding the web reference to the Windows application. We simply just select it, we click on the Add Reference button, and now we've added a reference to that web service, that middle tier component that's going to bring back data from SQL Server into our applications.
This is great.
So now let's double click on our form. The code behind, this is the same VB.NET code you use in Windows form. It's the code behind the web HTML form.
Now wait a second, Mike. In the past, when I used, say, Visual InterDev, I would be writing code in VB script. Is the same hold true here?
No, this is true VB.NET. This is the core language, the only VB.NET that's in Visual Studio.NET.
You get the full power of the Visual Basic.NET programming language behind your web applications?
100% full, Ari. You get it all.
That's great.
So let's go ahead and grab that same code snippet. What's even more interesting is the same code that works in a Win form basically works in a web form.
So we've got the same type of object model for Windows apps and web apps.
That's right, Ari. There's not really a lot you have to learn here. Now, in this particular case, I'm going to have to add an extra line of code because of the way the web works, and I'm going to have to bind that code to that form, but that's not too much to learn.
One more line of code. 3 lines ain't bad.
Let's go hit F5 again, and we'll go ahead and run that application.
Now, what does it mean to run a web application? What's happening here?
Well, I'm simply just copying those files over to the web server, and I'm simply hitting it with my browser.
Automatically fires an instance of Internet Explorer.
That's right. I just hit that webform.aspx, And that code behind was compiled into the DLL, and there's my HTML.
I didn't need hearing in that ear anyway. That's great.
Let's build one more, Ari. Now, this is probably one of the more exciting things that developers get to do.
I'm so excited already, I can't imagine anymore.
Well, there's a lot more, Ari. You know, VB developers now are Windows service developers, web service developers, web form developers, but there's a whole class of applications that await a VB developer.
What class of applications is that?
That's the mobile world, Ari. That's where people have cell phones and devices, smart devices and Palm Pilots, and they want applications to run off of their applications servers.
Interesting. So how do we do this? Is it a completely different paradigm for doing this?
Well, there's a project template called Mobile Web Form, and I just selected it, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to go over here. Now, I don't have a data grid here, but what I have is an object list, and I'm just going to drag that over to my design surface.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to go back and add a web reference to my web service.
And again, this is the same process as we saw before.
It's the same, and that's why, because we built .NET and Visual Studio from the ground up, we gave it all the same look and feel, so now you can be a productive developer.
Visual Basic developers have more power than ever.
This was architected and designed to be productive right off the bat.
Wow.
So now that I've got that in there, I can go ahead and double click on that form. I've added the web reference, and in this page load, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to add that same code that we did for the Windows form and the web form.
I don't believe it.
Now look at that squiggly. It's telling me that I don't have a data grid object on my form.
That looks like trouble.
And all I'm going to do is just change that to object list 1.
Okay.
And then I'm just going to add that data bind.
Looks like that squiggly went away.
That's right. And I'm just going to say object list 1 dot data bind. Boom. And then we'll hit F5.
Writing code has never been so fun.
This is easy. Now what's nice about this is that when your device hits this website, whether you have a Nokia phone or whether you have a StarTAC phone, it'll render the right HTML for that device.
So what we're seeing here is actually HTML code that's coming back. Now what if I wanted to test it out on an actual device?
Well, let's do that. Let's go down here and pull up a Mobile Explorer, which is just an emulator for a typical phone. In this case, it looks like kind of a Motorola StarTAC phone.
Right.
Now what we need to do is we need to grab that URL. So let's go ahead and for that mobile application that we just built, when we actually run it, we want to grab the URL that gets generated.
Okay.
Now, so I don't have to type that in there. I'll just go ahead and copy it, and I'll drag that over to the Mobile Explorer.
Okay.
And let me just bring that up.
Great.
And I'll copy it into the URL.
So this is going to emulate what it would be like if a cell phone were to hit this mobile application.
That's right, and there you go.
Unbelievable. Do you have anything else you can show me right now?
Well, you know, one of the things that is interesting about a phone is that it can't handle the same amount of data as say, an HTML browser.
Sure.
Rich experience in the IE.
Yeah.
So we want to go ahead and paginate that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my development environment here.
Sounds like you're going to have to write a lot of code.
No, actually, I'm going to write no code at all. We don't have time to write a lot of code in today's fast-paced world. I'm going to select the form, and I'm going to pick a property here called paginate.
No.
Yep. And I'm going to go ahead and build and browse that application. And I'm going to select that URL, just like I did before, and I'm going to go back to my little Mobile Explorer here and show you how it looks now.
I see.
And I'm going to right mouse click here and hit paste. I'm going to paste that URL right into the Mobile Explorer.
Okay.
And look at that.
There's a next button there.
That's right. And when you click on it, you go to the next page, and now you can go back and forth. So now you can paginate automatically on any device.
Automatic pagination. Do you believe it, folks?